Everybody, Matt here, and I've got a solo update today. This one's inspired actually about WWDC that just happened this week, and I've got a bit of a hot take on it. And this is really going out to the indie developers out there, especially those of us working on Apple platforms. And it's this. As independent developers, we often spend too much time working on the wrong things. And that includes myself. This is also a bit of a past message that I wish I could send. I could send to my past self. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, we might be spending tons of time crafting a very specific new animation we're working on, or adopting a new UI framework that was just announced at WWDC, or jumping to a new programming language, or just in general adopting new technologies, not because they necessarily benefit the app, but because Apple wants to see us adopt those technologies to hopefully get featured. And that's totally a lot of fun. It's totally a lot of fun to follow along with that stuff at WWDC. And, if the app you're working on is just a fun side project, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But if what you really want to do is turn your app into a business, then that's not the right approach. And I have learned this the hard way. This was a hard pill for me to swallow for a long, long time. I mean, I started as a Mac developer years ago, and I always prided myself on the level of craftsmanship I would put into my work on the Mac, the little details I'd put in, right? And there's nothing wrong with craftsmanship. It's a great thing, but it's usually not the main reason customers buy our products. Customers buy a product because it solves a problem for them. The polish you put into it might help sell it, but that's really not the main reason, right? And if you don't believe it, let's think about this hypothetical scenario. What if you had two choices? You had one super polished app. Actually, you know what? For this example, let's say it's a video conferencing app. You have a super polished, beautifully animated video conferencing app, just stunning onboarding, just gorgeous app, right? But it does an okay job of solving the problem. And sometimes it doesn't actually work. Maybe the video conference glitches out. Maybe it doesn't, just not that reliable. Okay, so that's option one. Option two is a kind of ugly app. It doesn't look that great. Might not even be made in a native UI toolkit on the platform, but it does an amazing job at video conferencing. The calls are always crisp, they're clear, they're reliable, never really fails you. Which app are you going to use? You're probably going to put up with the pretty ugly UI and use the one that works really, really well. I think, as I mentioned, Zoom is actually a great example of this, and that's actually what I was thinking of as I talked through that. It does an incredible job hosting video conferences, but the UI, well, it certainly leaves something to be desired. And if another app did come along that had a super slick UI, but it was just unreliable at video conferencing, you probably wouldn't use it. I think another great example of this is Apple Maps. Apple Maps is gorgeous, is absolutely amazing. Even the stuff they announced this year with the kind of the 3D elements they added are just beautiful. It looks straight out of a game. But Google Maps is still generally more reliable on directions. It doesn't look as good. It doesn't have as nice of finishing touches on it. But you know what? I always reach for Google Maps because I know it's going to be reliable. It's going to have better traffic estimates. It's more likely going to get me to my destination. And so while the polish and the beautiful animations you had on top are great and are great sizzle, they're not the steak. And you really need that solid steak there. And I've learned this the hard way myself as well. Years ago, when I'd come up with a product idea, I'd also jump into something like Photoshop, and I'd spend hours tweaking shadows, layer styles, doing all sorts of fancy mock-ups. When I was really focused on the wrong thing, I was trying to create this amazing, beautiful UI before I'd even nailed down exactly what I was solving and if it was a problem worth solving that customers were interested in. It was totally fun, but to build a business out of it, it's not the right way to go about it. The other thing is it's easy to get tunnel vision too on what other developers are doing, what Apple's doing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much what they're doing. What really matters is what your customers want. And of course, this might sound obvious, but it's so super easy to get pulled away from this, especially during something like WWDC, where there's all sorts of snazzy new stuff out. You want to adopt the latest frameworks, the latest languages, the latest things. But you got to ask yourself, like, what's really going to have an effect for your users and your customers? And if there is a new technology that's going to make it really change things for them, then by all means, adopt it. But just jumping over to a new programming language or UI toolkit is probably not enough on its own. So you really need to talk to those customers to find out what they really, really care about. So my advice to other indie devs is this. First and foremost, solve a problem, solve a serious problem. And number two, confirm you're solving that problem with real world users. And it can be ugly. It can be an ugly app. It can be kind of clunky, but really make sure that you're solving that problem and it's something that they really want. And then, and only then, start to polish away and add that beautiful experience on top. There's nothing wrong with adding that amazing polish. And honestly, it's probably the reason many of us who are engineers by background got into this, right? We love putting that craftsmanship into the products and the things we're building. There's nothing wrong with that. But just don't expect that to be the reason your product makes it as a business. The problem you're solving really is the foundation and the structure of everything you're doing. And the animation, the custom UI, those are the paint and trim, right? Those are important, but you can't build a house without a foundation and structure. And definitely important to keep that in mind. So anyway, hot takeover. You might totally disagree with me. I'd love to hear it if you do. Otherwise, reach out to me. Find me on Twitter, mronge, MRONGE. Or email me at matt@astropad.com. Love to hear what you think. All right. Until next time, you take care. Bye-bye now.